Silicon is a very useful and flexible material that can be used in almost anything, even this squishy silicon bottle. Silicon. Silicon is naturally slightly hydrophobic, and because of this rough texture on top, making it looking matte, this bottle is basically 100% hydrophobic. Occasional smoothness, like in these intersections of the folding pattern, is very smooth, causing it to be slightly hydrophilic, but the rest, so most of the water accumulates in these intersection in these intersecting points. The inside, which is where the water will go, is instead the opposite of the outside, hydrophilic, which means, let's pull this up, it's shiny, and you see those water droplets there, they stay sticking. Also, what do you do with the mouthpiece? It's hard because there is this plastic rim, or else the silicone would have too much friction, so the cap actually can barely be pushed inside without melting the silicone because of heat generated from the friction. Also, it's very flexible, causing it to be able to be folded like this. The folding edge, the folding creases will automatically be very, very thin, causing it to be like these spots to be very, very thin and causing weak spots like here. So that gives a total of 6 weak spots on every bottle. Also, the seams, which is where the two mold halves fit together and where the silicone have been injected into, is also a slight weak spot, but not as dramatic of a weak spot as these, the folding creases. Also, it's very flexible and translucent. And because silicone is very, very resistant to friction, the lower, this part, is actually very thick. You see that thick? Because every time you place it here, it will automatically scrape against the surface, causing it to be prone to leakage here. Also, the texture is hydrophobic because when I mean rough, it's not like bumpy microscopic surface. It's spiky roughness. And because of these very minuscule and insignificant spikes, because they're so small, they become very significant and causing them to trap air because they can then trap air, causing the water to automatically float off and just slide off these. Also, this is a brand new bottle, causing it to be slightly stiff because freshly cured industrial silicon is very, very stiff at first, but after being subjected to these elements a little more, they will start to become more flexible. Also, silicon can be in many different colors, so obviously this specific type of bottle has 4 colors and even a couple of shadings. You see it's very shiny in the inside, and you can actually see the thickest of the whole thing, and that is this square part, which is the place where you put it on. Silicon is also naturally very, very oilish, causing it to repel water even more. You can see those little beads of leftover water in it. Those beads form round things, not the droplets that becomes flat in the place where they stick, because water is technically very sticky to the other surface. The lid is clearly aluminum, because if it's steel, it will either rust or corrode. And that is all with this foldable silicone bottle. It's actually technically more into Kirigami, because origami you fold into 2D shapes. This thing can be folded into 2D and unfolded into 3D, so it's technically a Kirigami. And that's all with this. Also, it says it's BPA free. It may not be that heat resistant, and it's silicone with a volume of 700 milliliters. It's also able to be put in the dishwasher. That is all with this very silly but rather useful bottle that actually can be punctured. So avoid putting this near sharp objects. And don't punch it.